Aloha. This is footage of the 2017 so-called Great American Eclipse. It's about an hour of recording. I sped it up 4 times. And I just wanted to do like a little commentary over this video talking about like my first experience staring into the eclipse and sun gazing, and kind of like my explanations or my interpretations of what's going on with eclipses and the energy and the earth as a whole, just from my like very general basic perspective. First off, with my first time like challenging my reality, it was probably like the beginning of my so-called inner journey. I was in Mount Shasta. I had just like dropped out of the university system. I was an English major. I was going to start writing, but I didn't really know what to write and all that other stuff. And I really kind of like the system and I didn't jive at all. So I was just like, you know what? I need to do whatever it is on my own. That's when I started questioning my reality as a whole. And I'm like, well, if you're going to write, what are you going to write about? You're not just going to write about any old something. And that's when I was working out a lot. I was focusing on my body. I had just gotten out of the Army. I was looking to, I guess what people would say, like find themselves, like find some meaning, find some purpose, because I was not at all interested in the materialistic perspective of reality that was and is promoted by the mainstream media, the university system, society as a whole, Western civilization as a whole. I had been questioning 9/11 for, at that time, this was in 2011, so at that time it was about 4 years. Yeah, 3 or 4 years I had been questioning 9/11. I was still in the Army when I started to do that. So I started to question everything from like the material perspective, the military industrial complex, the prison industrial complex, all the information that was, when you watch those like Kymatica, Zeitgeist, all of those documentaries, all the information that comes in there, they talk a lot about religion and so on and so forth. I didn't buy into any of the movements. I wasn't in any part of, I knew people from the Zeitgeist movement. Some of my friends watched Kymatica, but yeah, I was never part of any movements or anything. I always wanted just the information and just to like continue to learn and expand. So when I started watching those documentaries, it really kind of reset me. It reset my perspectives on religion, spirituality, society, relationships, the relationship to like the Most High, the relationship to the earth as a whole, eventually even more so when I started to look into flat earth, because it started first with disassembling my grips on what I thought reality was and was supposed to be, based upon what I was told it was supposed to be through the public education system and through the university system, and then into the military. It's all about, just provide for your family, get married, get a house, get a car, be successful, and die. And then, that's it. Like, there's nothing there. So my biggest sort of time questioning my reality, I had my own apartment, I had my nice car, I had school. I had my girlfriend. I had everything, I thought. But I didn't have myself. I didn't know what that was. I was full of everything outside of myself, which was why I was focusing on and which is what the gym rat mentality, the materialistic reality, the beauty based upon your body reality is based upon. It's just, look good. It's like a friend of mine would say when we were golfing when I was in the army. He used to say, look good, play good. But it was horrible. That was the thing. It was not at all a good golfer. So, but that's how society is. It's like, look good, play good. So just fake it till you make it, but nobody actually makes it. You just continue faking your reality until you die, and then the inner work never gets done because society just tells you, your spiritual or your relationship with God is best if you just, go through, or not God, just the Most High. Your relationship with the Most High is, best filtered through a church or a preacher or a book or something other than yourself, other than what you were born with. I was never cool with that. So, I just started to disassemble society from the inside out. And then when I was out of school and questioning all of my reality, that's when the Occupy protest jumped off in San Francisco. And I was there day one. Then Occupy Oakland, day one. Started like 2 weeks later, or it's like 3 weeks later. And that's when I started to question, my involvement in this, because now I had proof. I had proof with my own eyes how corrupt this system is and how far this system will go to protect itself. I had seen the cops and how they were strategizing to destroy a peaceful gathering where we were not only feeding the homeless and feeding people who were part of this movement, but we had like a full-on like society that was donated by the people who were there. We had a full kitchen out on the city hall lawn in Occupy Oakland. We had a library, we had a power station, there was a daycare. Everything that you would think you would need just to live on the city hall, Oakland City Hall lawn, it was there. And I saw that threat to the city and how far they would go, to where they, just came in and started ripping tents up and, beating people up, hitting people with flashbang grenades, rubber bullets, tear gas, all kinds of shit. They went all the way through just to stop and stifle this statement, which is what it really was. It was a statement. We don't need you. We don't need your shit. We can do this on our own if you would just stop fighting us because we threaten your power. So once that went worldwide, from Oakland to Egypt, and then on, that's when Occupy took off. It was like right when Occupy Oakland got hit. That's when I really started to question my reality and see I'm seeing firsthand the media, local news, take people out, fake interviewers coming out of the local news vans, walking up to the Occupy protest and doing interviews. We busted these people out in front of everybody. Watching them get out of these media vans, Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 5 and 7. All of them had their own plants. And we saw the strategy of the police. We saw all this nonsense. And I would always think to myself, what the hell is going on? What are we really doing here? If we're trying to fight to change a system that is openly corrupt, that is openly trying to destroy nature. And then on top of that, hearing the Ohlone representatives, which are the Native American people for the Bay Area, for Oakland, speak at Occupy Oakland on day one, and just be like, you know what? You're already starting off on the wrong foot if you're talking about occupying occupied land. This is Ohlone land. All of the Bay Area was a mixture of different languages, of people who were living together. I'm not saying perfectly. I'm saying that there's a storyline that leads up to this Western civilization that predates all of this nonsense. And if that is not acknowledged, then you're just going to be doing grassroots trimming when you're not at all paying attention to the tree roots, which predate the Columbian era and include the Columbian genocide and the colonial massacres across the earth plane. If we're not going to the tree roots of that storyline, then we're just going to be, having to deal with whatever the so-called powers that be present to us in their own way. So once I started to disassemble that perspective in the Occupy Oakland and Occupy San Francisco timeframe, I really started to look inward and see, like, well, I see the physical warfare from being in the military. I see the psychological warfare from being in Occupy and watching this mainstream media just tell the story that they want to be told, that makes them the victims and makes them in power by how they tell this story. It's all illusions. It's all sleight of hand, smoke and mirrors. So I started to realize, well, there's something more, because we were surrounded by a lot of very intelligent people, not just like book smart, but spiritually intelligent people. A lot of like heavy duty people come out of the Bay Area, specifically Oakland. This is why the Black Panthers came out of there. A lot of stuff came out of UC Berkeley. A lot of the civil rights stuff, a lot of music, heavy duty people. And my family was there. It comes out of those roots in Oakland. And so I started to question, my spiritual engagement in reality. And then one day I was home taking a shower, and I was just sitting in the shower and asking myself, what is, at that time, like, what is God? Because you don't need religion to go to the inner parts of yourself and then question your spirit. You just need to start asking the right questions from the right perspectives and really mean it. So that's when I started to open up to, well, I don't need any answers, really. I just need to be open to this and allow this information to fall into place on its own. So in order for me to do that at that time, I needed to let go of all of the stuff. So I stopped eating like beef and pork at that time. I was moving towards stop eating chicken, and I gave my car to my sister. I gave away all my stuff in my apartment, and I let I ran my lease out, and I jumped on the road and started traveling. And I went up to Mount Shasta, was one of my first stops. And I was there during the eclipse. And I just remembered, okay, well, here's a test. If I'm coming from like the native perspectives, all these people around me in Mount Shasta talking about, here's your eclipse glasses. Make sure you wear your glasses. I'm listening to them like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, who... Did the Native Americans, did the Aboriginal people across the world, did they have eclipse glasses? No. If something was happening in the sky, they was going to look at it. And people, don't directly look into, get the hell out of my face with all this nonsense. So, I was just laying there on the ground, surrounded by all these people with these goofy ass glasses, telling me not to look at this event happening in the sky with my own eyes. I mean, being the person that I am, I was just like, you know what? get out of my face. So I stared into the sun, into the eclipse for 24 minutes straight. And I was the most calm and cool I had ever been. And it was just this beautiful thing. So, excuse me. Well, that didn't help much. Hopefully you can't hear that beep in the back. So yeah, I was just, that was kind of like my first real spiritual not engagement, but like spiritual ceremony with myself and the earth. It was me laying on the earth, open to questioning my reality and connecting with spirit and looking straight into these energy centers in the sky, the sun and the moon. And yeah, so that was my first thing, and that's when I started to realize, you know what, here's another proof of them lying to me, because my eyes are fine. I have perfect vision right now, and I've been sun gazing ever since too. So that's another thing I would look into. And this is not any kind of like I'm not a doctor or anything, but I can tell you from my own experience that I've been sun gazing. After that, I had no fear of staring directly into the sun for a long extended amount of time. It's been at least over like 10 plus 12 plus times that I've actually sun gazed, probably pushing 20 now, to where I just stare directly into the sun for an average of about 10 minutes straight, just like holding it, and my eyesight's perfectly fine. This is not any kind of medical advice or anything like that. I do feel that there's something that you have to be like prepared mentally and so on and so forth to be able to do that. Also, I've only done it when it's on the horizon, whether it's early morning or sunset. It's another like precaution because it's too intense when it's right overhead. Although I did look at the eclipse directly when it was right overhead today, which was at 10:20 in the morning. Excuse me. And fine, my eyes are fine now too. There is an adjustment to it afterwards, but you're not going to go blind like they tell you. So anyway, that's another thing I would say look into to go even further. Directly as a segue into my experience today with this eclipse, it was just an expansion of what I felt before when I was looking at the eclipse the first time. And I'm just overwhelmed with this comfort and this warmth and this kind of like a motherly warmth, you know, like when you're comfortable as a baby being, you know, it's hard to explain, but there's just like silent joy almost. It's kind of like this joy that has no words, that's inside your body, that doesn't have to do anything. It's just warm and happy, but not like outwardly happy. That's what I felt the first time I was looking at the eclipse, and that's what I felt more intense here. And that's when I was thinking to myself, like, what am I feeling? Like, what is this? And then I just broke it down to like the basic nature of what's going on, or what I'm thinking I'm experiencing, which was the you have the sun, you have the moon, and potentially these other celestial energy centers like Rahu and Ketu. Whatever is going on, it involves energy. And as natural as the trees are, as natural as water is, drinking water makes you feel good a certain way. Like being in the ocean makes you feel good, like naturally. Breathing feels good. So the sun, the moon are natural processes with this entire environment. Just breaking it down to its most basic nature. I'm not claiming I know anything, and this is just how I experience my reality and sharing it with you. So the sun and moon are as natural as, you know, water and air. So when and whatever other celestial objects or beings are involved in this earth experience process, there's some kind of convergence, some kind of energetic focus that's happening during an eclipse. That's the only way I can explain it. And in the daytime, we have the sun. In the nighttime, we have the light of the moon. They both have their balances. And in the daytime or during eclipses, we are, when you look directly into that, it's a focus of that energy, because your eyes, you yourself are like a sun, like your heart, your spark, your soul is an energy center, just like the sun is. And I was thinking about this earlier in reference to pressure systems and so on and so forth. If you were to puncture your earth, which is your body, you'd bleed out. Something would leak out, and then you would die, because the vacuum that is your body, and you have like, the vacuum that is your body is broken, and the whole system is thrown off. So anyway, this is just how I was seeing it's going to go into something that I was observing when I was looking at the eclipse earlier today too. But anyway, from a feeling perspective, the sun, the moon, and whatever celestial bodies, along with your relationship with Earth, yourself, your connection, your observation of your reality from the soul, the mind, excuse me, and the body, is all in this convergence when you're open to that space and not trying to interpret it all like this is actually what's happening. Like, no, just be open, be aware that something is happening, and you don't need to have to convert it to words or language or anything like that. Just experience it for what it is, and it all makes sense on its own, in time, in its own time. So anyway, and that's how I observe everything, especially like with flat earth and the experience overall, everything that's going on. But anyway, to get back on track and close this out, the sun, the moon, and you and the earth are in some kind of relationship. And when there's a convergence we call an eclipse that happens, it's a focus of energy. When you tune into that space, you're downloading this energy that doesn't have any kind of words to it. I mean, it's happening naturally by you just being here and being aware. It's just a matter of your level of engagement by your focus, because you think of something. When you focus on something, you're adding to not only your own expansion, but the collective expansion. So with your eyes, you're focusing too. With your thought, you're focusing too. With your spirit, you're focusing too. So when you tune all of this into the eclipse, and then you also have a number, possibly millions of people tuning into that also at the same time, at least on thought, by being aware of the eclipse, something expands, something happens. How I'm seeing it is, I don't know. The only thing I can say is that this experience with this eclipse was more intense than my previous one, staring directly into it, because everything was just like peaked out. I could just feel it more. I don't know what it is, but I can just feel it more. And I know other people know what I'm talking about, and I don't claim to have any answers for what it is. I just know that that's what it felt like. And other people are experiencing it based upon their own perspectives of reality. This is why information is so important. This is why being open to questioning your reality is so important, because you're actually opening up the doorways to expand not only your mind, but your soul and your body. It changes over time, and it'll shift your life whether you realize it now or later. These are what spiritual experiences are. We see it as, oh, there's an eclipse, the sun and the moon. Oh, great. Physical bodies, or we think are physical bodies in the sky, are creating some kind of event. But what's happening on the higher mind perspective? What's happening on the spiritual perspective? A lot of that time it doesn't have any words, because it's so all over the place. And it might not be able to be interpreted in a linear perspective, because these events, the higher mind and the spirit, is a non-linear, forever expanding relationship that you have, kind of like with your dreams. They're just kind of all over the place, but the information and the experience does get downloaded. So that's how I interpret the eclipses and so on and so forth. And I have no desire, I don't need to know. It'd be nice to know a little bit more about what the sun and the moon is and other celestial bodies, but spiritually, there's something deeper that you don't need to know, like, exactly what's going on here. But I think it's a beneficial though, and people are starting to question more of their reality, and this is what's happening with flat Earth and so on and so forth. So yeah. And to close this out, to add on to it, that was just my experience with the eclipse and, kind of like my little journey. But to close this out, the thing that I was thinking during the eclipses, and somebody who thinks on this level and wants to do their experiments or something, I was thinking of like a light bulb, how a light bulb works, and how a light bulb works in comparison to the earth, the dome, the sun, and the moon. When you light a light bulb without the vacuum of the glass around the filament, then that light immediately burns out. And this goes into like the electromagnetic not the experiment, the video I did on the electromagnetic sun, and how the sun and the moon are possibly working around the magnetic circle, which we call the equator. So there's a balance between the equator, the sun, the dome, and the earth as a whole, and it goes in, and the North Pole. So there's this whole thing going on that I explain more in those couple of videos where I show those experiments of what the so-called scientific community calls quantum levitation. You can look into that stuff. I shared the video in like some of the playlists, but you can check it out, or just look up quantum levitation if you like. But anyway, back on the point. Specifically with the energy of the sun, and how this place works, could be just like a light bulb. Like, instead of the vacuum being outside, we are in this vacuum. This could be another proof of the dome and so on. Or not a proof, but just like information towards the possibility of a dome being here, because this is it seems to be like a contained environment when you have the pressures of the air, the pressures of your body, and just your scientific observations of pressures overall, densities instead of gravity. The light bulb perspective seems to make sense to me. The energy comes from the atmosphere and the atmospheric pressure, or the atmospheric electromagnetic relationship overall, and kind of like wireless energy. That's how I'm seeing, like, wirelessly turn on a light bulb, like the Tesla light bulb. When you just hold a light bulb near a Tesla coil, it just turns that on. So I'm seeing the sun is the same way, as the filament inside the dome, which is the glass of the light bulb, and the electromagnetic circle we call the equator, and the relationship between that band and the North Pole could be activating the light that is the sun, and possibly the moon too. So anyway, that was just another thing that I was looking into, that people who are into the whole scientific observations of the sun and the moon and the lights and so on and so forth could start looking from the filament perspective of the sun, the pressurized system that is the light bulb, and so on and so forth. But those are just the things that I was experiencing during this eclipse. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you for joining me. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.